Hello everyone and hello Mr. Ruli. My name is Jazaul Aufa with my student ID 1252040045 and I'm from the class 2C. Now I'm going to present an argumentative paragraph analysis based on an article from the CLA journal and I have chosen the article. The article that I chose is titled Indonesian humorous status in social media, an application of script-based semantic theory of humor, which written by Cecilia Fitriani Damanik and Mulyadi in 2020. Okay, without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, first thing first, I would like to read my argumentative paragraph first that I got after I had a discussion with Gemini AI on Google before. Okay, so my argumentative paragraph is while social media platforms are often dismissed as spaces for shallow or disorganized entertainment, text-based digital humor actually operates as a highly structured and cognitively complex linguistic phenomenon. In an empirical study published in the CLA journal, researchers S.F. Damanik and Mulyadi tracked 17 distinct social media statuses over an 8-month period, demonstrating that digital humor systematically relies on sophisticated linguistic mechanisms, such as setup phrases and punchline stages, to function effectively. Skeptics might argue that internet humor is merely impulsive, unstructured nonsense that lacks genuine communicative value. This perspective, however, completely overlooks the deep structural mechanics underlying everyday digital interactions. In fact, the empirical evidence reveals that online humor is heavily reliant on precise semantic incongruities and deliberate script switching, proving that even a casual status requires nuanced linguistic execution to trigger psychological relief or superiority. Therefore, analyzing digital humor through established semantic frameworks is clearly an indispensable approach to validating social media as a sophisticated domain of modern language use. Okay, after I read the argumentative paragraph, now I'm going to break down the scaffolded structures from the paragraph that I have. Okay, the first pillar is the claim or the thesis statement. Okay, so actually, the claim or the thesis statement from my argumentative paragraph is located in the very first sentence of the paragraph, which is while social media platforms are often dismissed as spaces for shallow or disorganized entertainment, text-based digital humor actually operates as a highly structured and cognitively complex language phenomenon. Okay. So actually, as a writer, that was where I took a clear stance. So I acknowledge a common negative assumption about social media, but I immediately counter it by saying that actually digital humor is an advanced linguistic event. The second pillar is the weaponized evidence. Okay, from my argumentative paragraph, the weaponized evidence is in the sentence here. In an empirical study published in the CLA journal, researchers S.F. Damanik and Mulyadi tracked 17 distinct social media statuses over an 8-month period. I'm sure we all know that an argument without data is actually just an opinion, and an opinion is weak. But on the other side, to write an argumentative paragraph, we need something strong. So we have to make the argument strong by adding data. And from the sentence that I just read, um, there were two two details. Those were 17 distinct social media statuses, so 17 statuses, and an 8-month period. And it shows the reader that my claim is strong because it is based on empirical facts. So it make my claim difficult or hard to deny. Next, the third pillar is the counter argument and logical refutation. In this structure, I must anticipate what the opposite side will say. And in this paragraph, I introduce the counter argument by stating here skeptics might argue that internet humor is morally impulsive, unstructured nonsense that lacks genuine communicative value. But again, I immediately destroy it with logical refutation by saying this perspective, however, completely overlooks the deep structural mechanics underlying everyday digital interactions. And actually, this shows the reader that I have considered the alternative viewpoint, but I found them logically flawed. The last structure is the final resolution, and I put the final resolution on the last sentence. The sentence is therefore, analyzing digital humor through established semantic frameworks is clearly an indispensable approach to validating social media as sophisticated domain of modern language use. So here I synthesize the evidence and also the refutation into a definitive conclusion, leaving no doubt in the reader's mind. Okay, now let us move to the meta discourse analysis. The first is about interactive metadiscourse. The first interactive metadiscourse is transitions. So, in this argumentative paragraph, I used words like while, however, in fact, and also therefore. So, those words are transitions words, and I use those words to keep my paragraph is organized because without using those words our paragraph would feel choppy and also of course disorganized. And then the second interactive meta discourse is code glosses. Here in my paragraph I use the minus sign, like the stripe sign, to give an indirect explanation to the reader. Because the sophisticated linguistic mechanism, it can be abstract and it can be hard to understand by the reader. That's why I use the this sign to give an indirect explanation to them. Okay, and the second meta-discourse analysis is about interactional meta-discourse. The first interactional meta-discourse that I use is hedges. For edges, I use words like here, often dismissed, like often, and then skeptics might argue. I use the might. Why I use those words? Because you know, often and might, those words can protect my argument from being disproven easily by a single exception, and it shows academic caution and humility. And then the second um, interactional meta discourse is boosters. Here I use boosters like systematically, relies, completely overlooks, and clearly indispensable approach. So boosters can show how strong my opinions are. And the last interactional meta discourse is the engagement markers and self mention. Okay, about self mention first. I'm sure we all agree that we, as a writer, we wouldn't prefer to use like pronoun like I directly, like to mention ourselves, because that would feel so unprofessional, right? So that's why in this paragraph I rather chose, I rather use the skeptics into the text. So this is how I engaged the reader implicitly through my text. Okay, that's all from me. That is all my presentation. And for the last, in conclusion, Gemini AI can help us as students or writer to write a strong argumentative paragraph, because by learning with AI, by talking with AI, we can get a trusted information, a trusted materials for our assignments. So we can just ask them and then they would give us a fast response. So that will effectively save our time too. Thank you.